I would like to promise and pledge that I will totally accept the results of this great and historic presidential election if I win.
Okay, well, doesn't look like that's going to happen. If you believe the polls, and I'm not talking about one or two, I'm talking about every single one of them. The two latest national numbers out show Hillary Clinton at 50%. And this is for the first time here throughout the whole process, whether all four in the field or even just the two frontrunners here. And it's also showing that leads are opening up against Trump all across the map. Check out this map, and it comes from Politico. It tracks 11 battleground states, and as you can see, most of them blue. And again, he needed to win these more than her to get to the magic 270 number. Only Iowa and Ohio are red, and Ohio practically a toss-up here. And here's how Politico explains Trump's uphill battle. Quote, Clinton leads Donald Trump by 5 points or more in every battleground state when we're talking about Colorado, Michigan, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Wisconsin. If she won those 6 states, plus all the other reliably Democratic states that Obama captured in 2008 and 12, she would eclipse the 270 number and obviously win. Plus, we're talking a whole bunch of other states that are in play as well. Now, election guru Nate Silver of 538 says, barring some sort of October surprise, Clinton finished off Trump with the last debate. And remember here, Silver's the guy who picked 49 of the 50 states right 4 years ago. Also, this isn't good. Just a few weeks before Election Day, Trump's national political director, Jim Murphy, is, quote, stepping back from the campaign. Murphy says it is for personal reasons. And, Mike,
sir,
Texas is, yeah, right, really convenient, you know, jump off that ship, right? Texas is in the margin of error. You got Georgia, it's a toss-up right now. Do you think the likelihood, and I've heard two different schools of thought, that there are people right now, and look at Arizona, she's a 5 in Arizona, that there are Trump voters who don't want to admit it when called, even in anonymous polls, but come Election Day, they'll be motivated and they will turn out in bigger numbers than the polls reflect. Or that while we may not see Reagan-Mondale, where Reagan won 49 of the 50 states here, it's more likely she wins 40 states than she wins 30.
I know you asked me an either-or question, but I'm going to answer yes, no. So yes, both of those things are. I don't know.
God, you are steeped in politics.
I just had lunch. I was at a luncheon this past Tuesday, and Congressman Dan Donovan, Staten Island, Brooklyn Republican, was there, and we had this exact same conversation. And he's a loyal, accomplished establishment Republican, so of course he has his opinion. But candidly, we agreed it could be a route, or we're going to see votes coming out of places like the west coast of Florida and places outside Tampa and Tallahassee that aren't answering the phone to do polls and registered to vote when they got their driver's license, if they have the voter motor law down there, I don't know, or registered to vote 10 years ago and haven't voted since, and this time they're inspired to do so. Despite Trump not having these big ground operations that we know Hillary is counting on to run up the numbers in urban areas and all these swing states, which is reflected in the polls because those people answer the phone and do political polls. We don't know. That's what we don't know. So, we said this on the break, it would be a shame if it is a rout and Hillary wins big time, that they don't learn a lesson from this. And a colleague of mine said they should have a cabinet level post, Secretary for Humility, to take a look at this and see, how did it get this far?
Yeah.
Right? How did this happen? What can we do better? And I'm not just talking about 55, 60-year-old white Catholic men in, ex-urban areas in Ohio. I mean, a real deep dive to figure out what could be fixed in the economy that could pass the Senate, pass the House.
Yeah, and I think a huge mistake is somebody reading a mandate no matter what happens on November 8th. But to that end, Phil, I hear both schools of thought. Sometimes I think we in the media want something close, right? So we try and figure out some scenario where it's going to be close. Right. But there's a 20-point swing in women. Yeah. For the first time, she's doing better with white men than him in certain groups. And you look at every other demographic, African-American, Latino, you go up and down the line here, she's running away with the thing. I don't know. I know there's 35 to 40% of the public that, like he said, he could shoot somebody in Fifth Avenue. They're still going to vote for him.
Yeah.
But you can't win an election with that.
Well, I mean, you mentioned the October surprise. We're heading into November. It could be a November surprise. Who knows? But, you know, what's funny about this election, too, is because there are other people running against these two. You know, I mean, forget about the Libertarian and the Green Party person. I'm talking about the media he says he's running against, and WikiLeaks and the Russians that she says she's running against. And who knows? Who knows? Anything
But
could
is
happen.
there anything anymore that could, I mean,
Well-
if somebody sits back and looks at the WikiLeaks, right?
Yeah.
There's substance there. There's legitimate statements that were made
And it
that
just-
either confirm the worst suspicions or raise legitimate questions. It hasn't made it a bleep's worth the difference. Nobody cares what's in there really. Right. Yes, the diehard Trump guys does, but it hasn't moved the needle because he does everything humanly in his power to turn the attention away from that. He can't even at a debate focus on this, and he's pledging his love for Putin. So does it matter
His
even
horse,
what's in
too.
there?
His horse also.
Oh, his
Good
horse as well, yes.
I got the joke. Yeah. Well, no, you're right. I mean, I think it's over, personally, right?
It's really as simple, Richard. We can go through a million hypotheticals but his base will turn out.
You got the
It really
35.
is this simple. It comes down to this. President Hillary Clinton. It's over. I'm not correct. President-elect Hillary Clinton. It's over. Even if his base turns out in record numbers. And I assume your assessment, the argument you made was factual and correct. So you'll get that to turn out, but it's not enough to stop Hillary Clinton
And
from winning the
reportedly,
election.
you know this, the internal polls for a lot of these folks say it's even worse than the nationals.
Oh, yeah. Well, because you can. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, you mentioned Secretary of Humility. That's what she needs, a little humility too. The worst thing that could happen is if she wins and she gets up there and moonwalks across the stage and says, "I'm number one."
Those emails, I just want to say this one thing. Those emails you mentioned, they're not an issue now. Nobody can care. They're going to be an issue after she's president-elect. They're going to come back to haunt her. I'm sorry.
Joel Bennetson, who's Hillary's chief strategist and pollster, is a brilliant pollster. I mean, so much so he has his own way of laying out the polls where I need a tutorial in order to read the binders because it's a lot. So he knows that it's different. Rasmussen polls don't even do likely voters. Fox polls do likely voters, but they only do some only do landlines, some only do cell phones. But you do an internal poll. You have Bennetson doing your internal national polling. You're going to get a deep dive and you're going to look at the numbers and say, all right, it's actually,
And I'll give you just a little throwaway line that doesn't mean a lot around here, but to me, it speaks volumes. Senator Flake, conservative Republican senator from Arizona, forget that he's already hopped off the Trump bandwagon. He said today, maybe we ought to reconsider the Merrick Garland nomination for the Supreme Court nominee. That's the nominee that Obama put up that Republicans wouldn't even put a vote up for. Listen to what they're saying. They expect it's going to not only be a rout, and they think this might be their last best chance to maybe get a moderate on the court other than what she'll put up here. And they could be losing the Senate. So there's a lot baked into that, a lot of extrapolation from me. But okay. All right. Now, when we come back here, I want these guys to weigh in on a story that, same story, different place, different name, corruption. This case on the both sides of the Hudson River, latest on Bridgegate, and what defendant Bridget Kelly had to say on the stand today. Then the bribery case against Nassau County exec Ed Mangano, yet another elected official that the feds have charged.